Her aunt locked us in the pantry between the canned cranberry sauce and a 50-pound bag of flour and shouted through the door, "I am not releasing either of you until one of you admits why you've been looking at each other like that for 8 years." That was the moment I realized Thanksgiving had officially gone from awkward to federal offense. My name is Julian Reed. I was 26, a middle school history teacher, and until that Thursday, I considered myself a calm, reasonable man. I could handle 8th graders arguing about whether Abraham Lincoln had main character energy. I could handle cafeteria duty. I could even handle my mother asking why I was still single every time I came home for Christmas. What I could not handle was being trapped in a walk-in pantry with my best friend, Lila Bennett, while 32 members of her family waited outside like they were watching the season finale of our denial. Lila stood 3 feet away from me, arms folded over her burgundy sweater, cheeks pink, dark hair falling loose from the clip she'd been fighting all afternoon. She looked at the locked door, then at me, then back at the door. "Just so we're clear," she said, "I did not authorize this kidnapping." I tried the handle again. It didn't move. "Good to know. I'll mention that in the police report. You're not calling the police on my Aunt Valerie. She imprisoned a public school employee. She also made the sweet potato casserole, so the jury will be conflicted." That was Lila. Even trapped in a pantry by a woman wearing turkey earrings, she could still make me laugh. And that had always been the problem. Lila and I met freshman year of college when she stole my last clean dryer sheet from the dorm laundry room. She claimed it was community property. I claimed she was a criminal. She smiled at me like she had invented sunshine and said, "Then come arrest me, history boy." 8 years later, I was still history boy. She was still impossible. And somewhere along the way, I had stopped noticing other women the way I noticed her. I noticed the way she tied ribbons around takeout containers when she brought me leftovers from the bakery where she worked. I noticed the little line between her eyebrows when she was reading a text she didn't like. I noticed that she sang quietly when she washed dishes and denied it every single time. I noticed and I said nothing, because Lila was my best friend, and I had watched enough people ruin good things by asking for more. My parents had been one of those couples who loved loudly, fought louder, and finally split over a Thanksgiving argument about gravy that apparently wasn't really about gravy. I was 12. Ever since then, I'd had a bad habit of treating peace like something fragile. If a relationship mattered, I didn't shake it. I didn't test it. I didn't lean too hard. Lila mattered more than anyone, so I became the man who fixed her wobbly bookshelf, picked her up from bad dates, let her cry into my hoodie when her grandmother died, and pretended I didn't feel something sharp and warm under my ribs every time she leaned her head on my shoulder. That Thanksgiving, I'd only gone with her because she'd begged. "My family is unbearable when I show up single," she'd said the week before, standing in my apartment doorway with a bakery box in her hands. "Come as my emotional support man." Is that a legal title? It comes with pie. What kind? Bourbon pecan. I'm in. She grinned. You're too easy. Only with you, I thought. Like an idiot, I did not say it. Her family lived in a sprawling old farmhouse outside Lancaster, Pennsylvania, the kind with creaky floors, lace curtains, and enough framed cousins on the walls to start a small voting district. By noon, the place smelled like roasted turkey, sage stuffing, butter, cinnamon, and judgment. Every married cousin arrived in pairs. Every aunt had opinions. Every uncle asked what I did, then told me teachers were saints, then immediately asked if I'd considered administration because that's where the money is. Lila moved through it all like a woman walking across thin ice in cute boots. "You okay?" I asked when I found her hiding near the sink, peeling potatoes that had already been peeled. She didn't look up. "If one more person says you two would make such pretty babies, I'm climbing into the ayade oven." I leaned beside her and lowered my voice. "I'd miss you." She glanced at me, a smile tugging despite herself. "Would you?" "Eventually, once the smoke cleared." She bumped my hip with hers. It was nothing. It was everything. Her cousin Megan watched us from the kitchen island with the smug expression of someone who owned a label maker and used it on emotions. "See?" Megan said. That right there." Lila pointed the peeler at her. "Finish that sentence and I'll tell everyone what happened at your bachelorette party." Megan went silent. I admired that kind of power. For most of the afternoon, Lila and I performed our usual dance. We sat next to each other because there were no other seats. We shared a plate of deviled eggs because her Uncle Ray had parked himself in front of the tray. She stole the crispy skin from my turkey. I slid the last dinner roll onto her plate without thinking. Every time I looked up, someone was watching. Her mother smiled too softly. Her older brother Matt raised his eyebrows at me over his beer. And Aunt Valerie, the family instigator, kept appearing in doorways like a ghost with a mission. Aunt Valerie was 60-something, 5 feet tall, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, and terrifying in the way only women who had survived 3 husbands and raised 4 daughters could be. She wore an apron that said, "Talk turkey to me," and had the air of someone who considered subtlety a vitamin deficiency. During dessert, she sat across from us while Lila cut into her pumpkin pie. "So, Julian," Aunt Valerie said, "are you seeing anyone?" I nearly choked on whipped cream. Lila answered before I could. "He is very busy educating America's youth." I didn't ask if he was busy. I asked if he was lonely. The table went quiet in that horrible way tables do when everyone pretends to keep eating but suddenly chews like spies. I set down my fork. "I do all right." Aunt Valerie's eyes flicked to Lila. That wasn't a no. Lila's knee pressed against mine under the table. Not accidentally. A warning, maybe, or a plea. I looked at her, and for 1 second the noise of the room thinned out. She still had a crumb at the corner of her mouth. Her eyes were bright from wine and embarrassment and something else I didn't trust myself to name. Then she whispered, "Don't you dare help her." So I smiled at Aunt Valerie and said, "I'm single." Lila kicked me under the table. Hard. I coughed to hide a laugh. Aunt Valerie leaned back like a woman who had just found the loose thread in a sweater. "And you, Lila?" Lila lifted her chin. "Tragically unclaimed." "Interesting," Aunt Valerie said. "No," Lila said. "Not interesting. 2 attractive people. Best friends for years, both single. Still not interesting. Always arriving together. We carpooled. Finishing each other's sentences. We're efficient. Sleeping on each other's couches. That happened twice," Lila snapped. I raised a finger. 3 times if we count the nor'easter. "Julian." "Sorry." The table laughed, but Lila's face changed. Not angry exactly, more like exposed. That was when I realized the teasing didn't just embarrass her, it hurt her. Maybe because there was nothing there, maybe because there was. After dinner, I helped carry dishes to the kitchen. Lila followed with a stack of plates quieter than she'd been all day. I found her by the pantry, reaching for a serving bowl on a high shelf. Without thinking, I stepped behind her and took it down. My chest nearly brushed her back. She went still. I had done this 100 times, reached over her, opened jars, fixed hooks, grabbed things she couldn't reach. But this time, with the house humming behind us and her perfume mixing with cinnamon and clove, the space between us felt dangerously thin. I handed her the bowl. She turned and we were too close. "Thanks," she said, softer than usual. "You looked like you were about to climb the shelves." "I'm resourceful." "You're 5'2". 5'3" in boots. "You're wearing socks." She looked down at her fuzzy cream socks, then back at me. "Emotionally, I'm in boots." I laughed and her smile warmed slowly, like she'd forgiven me for surviving dessert. Then Aunt Valerie appeared beside us holding a tray of empty glasses. "Lila, sweetheart, grab the extra. Napkins from the pantry, would you?" Lila narrowed her eyes. "Why?" "Because your mother has been using paper towels like we live in a barn." "We kind of do live in a barn." "Pantry," Aunt Valerie said. Lila looked at me. "Come with me." I should have heard the trap snap shut right there. But when Lila Bennett looked at me like that, half annoyed, half amused entirely herself, I would have followed her into a lion enclosure with a serving fork. So I stepped into the pantry behind her. The door closed. The lock clicked. For a breath, neither of us moved. Then Aunt Valerie's voice came through the wood, bright as a church bell. "You two can come out when you stop insulting the intelligence of every adult in this family." Lila lunged for the handle. "Aunt Valerie." "Nope." This is insane. This is Thanksgiving." I leaned close to the door. "Mrs. Valerie, with respect, I have work on Monday." With respect, Julian, you have been in love with my niece since the Obama administration. My entire body forgot how to function. Behind me, Lila went silent. Outside the door, several people gasped. Someone, probably Megan, whispered, "Oh my God!" I turned around slowly. Lila was staring at me, not laughing, not denying it, just staring like Aunt Valerie had thrown a match into a room full of things we both pretended weren't flammable. I tried to smile. It did not land. "She exaggerates," I said. Lila's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Does she? Does she?" 2 words. That was all Lila said, but they hit me harder than the locked door. I had imagined this conversation in 100 cowardly ways. In my apartment, maybe, with rain against the windows and a safe escape route. Over coffee where I could hide behind a mug. At her bakery after closing, with the smell of sugar and yeast softening the edges of whatever came next. I had never imagined confessing my feelings in a pantry while her cousin pressed an ear to the door, and someone outside said, "Shh, I can't hear." Lila whipped toward the door. "Megan, I swear on Grandma's gravy boat, move." Footsteps scurried. I almost laughed. Almost. But Lila turned back to me and the laugh disappeared. The pantry was not big. Shelves lined 3 walls stacked with jars of pickles, canned peaches, stuffing mix, foil pans, bags of onions, and enough pasta to feed a marching band. A single yellow bulb hung overhead, making everything feel too warm and too intimate. Lila stood close enough that I could see the faint gold flecks in her brown eyes. I had seen them before. Of course I had. I had looked at her more than I'd ever admitted. "Julian," she said. My name sounded different in her mouth just then. Not casual, not teasing, like she was placing it carefully between us. I rubbed the back of my neck. "Your aunt has a flair for drama. She once faked a fainting spell to get out of a baby shower game. I know. Exactly. But that wasn't what I asked. You didn't technically ask anything." Her brows rose. "Right. Wrong time for technicalities." I exhaled and looked at a shelf of canned green beans like Del Monte might offer legal counsel. "Lila? If you lie," she said softly, "I'll know." That was the problem with loving your best friend. She already knew your tells. She knew when I was pretending to be fine because my voice got too even. She knew when I was nervous because I made jokes like stepping stones over a deep water. She knew I hated mushrooms, loved old bookstores, and still kept the postcard she sent me from Santa Fe tucked in my desk drawer. She knew me, and somehow I had convinced myself she didn't know this. I met her eyes. "No, she doesn't exaggerate." The words left my mouth and seemed to take all the oxygen with them. Lila's lips parted. Outside the door, somebody squeaked. Lila didn't turn around this time. She kept looking at me. "For how long?" she asked. I gave a helpless half laugh. "Do you want the honest answer or the version that makes me sound less pathetic?" "The honest one." "Then, not since the Obama administration." Her shoulders dropped a fraction. I continued, "Probably since the night you showed up at my dorm room with soup." Her eyes searched mine. "That was sophomore year. You had the flu. You had a midterm. You were shaking and trying to convince everyone you were fine. So you remember that?" "I remember you fell asleep on my bed while I was reading about the Treaty of Versailles." A tiny smile appeared, fragile and stunned. "You were so mad because I drooled on your notes." "I was not mad. You said, 'This is historically devastating.' It was my best joke of the semester." Her smile grew, then faded into something more tender. I leaned against the shelf behind me because standing upright had become unexpectedly complicated. "That night," I said, "I remember thinking I liked taking care of you. Not in a hero way. Not because you needed me. You didn't. You're the most stubborn person I've ever met." "Thank you. You're welcome. But I liked being the person you called. I liked that you trusted me with the ugly parts. Fever, messy hair, bad mood, everything. And then the next morning, you woke up wearing my sweatshirt and asked if I had any cereal that didn't taste like packing peanuts, and I swallowed. I thought, oh no. Her eyes shone. I jumped. There was no climbing back. So yes, I said, I've been in love with you for a long time. The pantry went completely silent. Even her family seemed to understand this was not their moment anymore. Lila looked down at her hands. Her fingers were twisting the hem of her sweater. I had seen her face down rude customers, bad bosses, parking tickets, one truly unhinged raccoon near her trash cans. But now she looked scared. That frightened me more than rejection. Hey, I said gently. You don't have to say anything. I shouldn't have. No! Her head came up fast. Don't do that. Do what? Confess something huge and then try to make it smaller before I can touch it. I stopped. She took one step toward me. My heart became a percussion instrument. You're not pathetic, she said. That's nice, but not the headline here. Julian. Sorry. She was close now. So close the sleeve of her sweater brushed my wrist. I thought it was me, she whispered. I forgot every word I'd ever taught. What? I thought I was the one making things weird. I thought I'd invented this whole ache. She pressed a hand to her chest like the word had hurt coming out. I thought maybe I'd ruined friendship in my head because you were safe and kind and always there, and I couldn't tell if I loved you or if I loved being loved by you. I couldn't move. She gave a small, nervous laugh, and then I'd go on some date with a man who said supposedly 3 times, and all I could think was Julian would never. I might under severe stress. No, you wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. Her laugh broke into something shaky. I wanted to reach for her, but I didn't. Not yet. Lila, I said, are you saying I'm saying Aunt Valerie is a menace? Yes. And I hate that she's going to be smug until Easter. Undoubtedly. And I'm saying... She looked at my mouth, then back to my eyes. I'm saying I have compared every man I've dated to you and gotten angry when they weren't you. The shelf behind me dug into my back. I did not care. Outside, Aunt Valerie whispered loudly, I knew it. Lila snapped, if you ruin this, I'm putting raisins in your stuffing next year. Immediate silence. I loved her so much I almost laughed and cried at the same time. She faced me again, cheeks flushed. Sorry. That was terrifyingly attractive. Her eyes widened and then she smiled. Slow, real, a little wicked. Oh? I had crossed one terrifying bridge. Maybe that made me reckless. Yes. Me threatening an elderly woman does it for you? She committed a crime first. Fair. We stood there smiling at each other like idiots in a pantry full of carbohydrates. Then Lila's gaze dropped again to my mouth. This time, I noticed. This time, I let myself notice. I asked, can I kiss you? Her answer was immediate. Please. I stepped forward. She met me halfway. The first touch was soft, almost careful. Her hand landed against my chest, fingers curling in my sweater. My palm found her waist. She tasted faintly like pumpkin pie and wine, and for one suspended second I had the absurd thought that I had wasted years not knowing this. Then she made a tiny sound against my mouth. Not dramatic, not performative, just surprised and wanting. Everything in me went warm. I kissed her again, less carefully. She rose onto her toes, both hands sliding up to my shoulders, and I pulled her closer until there was no polite space left between us. The pantry bulb hummed overhead. A bag of marshmallows fell off a shelf and hit the floor with a pathetic little thump. Lila broke the kiss with a laugh against my lips. Was that the marshmallows or one of my relatives feigning? Could be both. She rested her forehead against mine. I closed my eyes. There it was. The thing I'd been afraid to ask for. Not fireworks exactly. Fireworks were loud and over too quickly. This felt like coming home and realizing the porch light had been left on for you all along. Her thumb brushed my collarbone. We have to talk about this. Definitely. Not in a pantry. Preferably not. And not with my family listening like raccoons in the walls. From the other side of the door, her Uncle Ray muttered, I heard that. Lila groaned and dropped her face against my chest. I wrapped my arms around her before I could overthink it. She fit there too easily. I'm going to murder them, she mumbled into my sweater. I'll be your alibi. She tilted her face up. That's romantic. I am a history teacher. Loyalty during crimes is basically half of civilization. She smiled, but then the smile softened. Are you scared? She asked. I could have lied. I didn't. Terrified. Me too. My arms tightened around her. But I don't want to pretend anymore. Her eyes held mine. Neither do I. For a moment, the locked door didn't matter. The family didn't matter. The years behind us, full of near confessions and swallowed feelings, didn't matter either. Lila touched my cheek. A simple gesture. A choice. Then she kissed me once more, brief and certain, like punctuation. When she pulled back, her smile turned dangerous. Okay, she said. Let's give Aunt Valerie what she wants. I blinked. A confession? Oh no, she already got that. Lila took my hand, lacing her fingers through mine. Now she gets consequences. She banged on the pantry door. Aunt Valerie, she called, open up. Her aunt answered far too sweetly. Are we emotionally honest now? Lila squeezed my hand. I squeezed back. Yes, Lila said. And Julian is my date to leftovers tomorrow. Alone, no family, no commentary, no surveillance. There was a pause. Then Aunt Valerie said, So he is your date? Lila looked at me. I had never seen her look braver. Yeah, she said, smiling. He is. Aunt Valerie made us wait another 10 seconds, not because she needed to find the key, because she was savoring victory. When the lock finally clicked and the pantry door swung open, Lila's family stood arranged in the hallway with the guilty posture of people who had absolutely been eavesdropping and lacked the decency to be ashamed. Megan held a spoon. Her Uncle Ray held a beer. Lila's mother held both hands over her mouth, eyes damp and delighted. Aunt Valerie stood in front, smiling like she'd personally negotiated a peace treaty. Lila lifted our joined hands. If anyone claps, she said, I'm leaving and taking the pies. 32 people froze. Aunt Valerie's gaze dropped to our hands, her smile deepened. No clapping. Then, from somewhere in the back, a small child whispered, Can I clap quietly? No, Lila and I said together. The child sighed. That was the first time the family laughed, and it broke some of the tension. Not all of it. I still felt like I had stepped out of a closet into a courtroom where everyone had already read my diary. Lila must have sensed it because her thumb moved over the back of my hand. A tiny stroke. A reminder. I'm here too. I looked down at her, and she looked up at me with a face that said, Don't you dare bolt. So I didn't. Her mother came forward first. Sweetheart, she said softly. Lila stiffened. Mom, I'm not going to make a scene. You cried at a dog food commercial last week. That dog was a veteran. Lila closed her eyes. Please don't. Her mother pulled her into a hug anyway. Since Lila didn't let go of my hand, I got dragged half into it too, which meant I spent several seconds pressed awkwardly against both Bennett women while Aunt Valerie watched with the satisfaction of a casino owner. Lila's mother leaned back and touched my arm. Julian, we've loved you for years. That did something uncomfortable to my chest. Thank you, I said. And if you hurt her, I'll have Matt bury you under the hydrangeas. Mom. What? I said it warmly. Matt from behind her lifted his beer in confirmation. I do know where the shovels are. I nodded. Noted. Lila tugged me away. Nobody is burying anybody. We are going to get our coats. But dessert? Megan started. We've had dessert, Lila said. Aunt Valerie arched one silver eyebrow. Have you? Lila pointed at her. Pantry crime. You're on thin ice. I should not have found her bossiness attractive. I did anyway. 5 minutes later, we were on the farmhouse porch with cold November air rushing over us. The sky had gone deep blue, and the fields beyond the driveway were silvered with frost. From inside came the muffled roar of her family, dissecting our future like a football replay. Lila wrapped her coat tighter around herself. I still had her hand. Neither of us seemed ready to let go. So, I said. So, she echoed. My car is blocked in by 6 minivans. My car is blocked in by my cousin's emotional support Subaru. We're trapped again. She looked at me, and the porch light caught the curve of her smile. At least this one has oxygen. And witnesses. Too many. Silence fell, softer than before. I wanted to kiss her again. I also wanted to ask 17 responsible questions. What are we doing? What changes tomorrow? What if we ruin everything? What if we don't? Lila leaned her shoulder against the porch post. You're thinking very loudly. I teach adolescents. Thinking is my only defense. You're panicking. A little. About me? About losing you. Her expression changed immediately. There it was. The honest thing, under all the jokes. I looked out toward the dark fields. I know we said we don't want to pretend anymore. I meant that. But you're not just someone I have feelings for. You're my emergency contact. I am. You filled out the form at the dentist because you said I looked administratively helpless. Oh, right. You're the person I call when something good happens, and the person I want around when everything is garbage. If this goes badly... Julian. I stopped. She stepped closer until our shoes nearly touched. Do you think I'm not scared of that too? I know you are. No, I don't think you do. Her breath clouded between us. You're afraid of losing your best friend? I'm afraid of finding out I could have had this years ago and wasted time being brave in every part of my life except you. That one went straight through me. She looked down at our joined hands. I kept waiting for you to choose me in a way I couldn't explain away. My throat tightened. I did choose you, I said. Over and over, I just did it quietly. I know. Her eyes lifted. But I need you to choose me out loud now. The front door opened behind us. Megan's head popped out. Are you two having a meaningful conversation? Lila didn't even turn. Go away. Mom says ask if you're staying for board games. No. Is Julian your boyfriend now? I choked on air. Lila finally looked over her shoulder. Megan. What? The group chat needs clarity. The group chat can develop patience. The door shut. Lila sighed. I'm sorry. For what? Being loved by a family with no boundaries? Mostly the no boundaries part. I stepped closer. Lila. Her attention came back to me. I choose you. The words were simple. Maybe too simple for 8 years of wanting. But her face went still, and I knew they landed. I choose you as my best friend, I said, and as the woman I want to take to dinner and kiss on porches and argue with about whether raisins belong in anything. They don't. Obviously, I choose you even if it's awkward for a while, even if your aunt starts planning a June wedding in her head. She already has. I choose you out loud. Lila's eyes shone again, but this time her smile came with it. Good, she whispered. Then she rose onto her toes and kissed me under the porch light. It was not like the pantry kiss. That one had been surprise and hunger and years collapsing at once. This one was slower, deliberate. Her cold fingers slid into my hair. My hands found her waist beneath her open coat. The house was full of people behind us, and still the moment felt private because she made it private, because she kissed me like she had decided something and wanted me to feel the decision. When she pulled back, her cheeks were flushed from more than the cold. Leftovers tomorrow, she said. Our first date? Our first official date. What was the pantry? Illegally facilitated pre-date negotiations. Romantic. I thought so. We were laughing when Matt opened the door. I hate to interrupt whatever this is, he said, clearly not hating it at all. But Aunt Val moved her car and the escape corridor is open. Lila turned to me. Walk me to mine? Always. The words slipped out before I could make it casual. She heard it anyway. Her smile softened. We said our goodbyes at the door, which involved 2 hugs, 1 threat, 3 knowing looks, and Aunt Valerie pressing a container of turkey into my hands. For tomorrow, she said. You're assuming I'll be invited. She glanced at Lila. Am I wrong? Lila took the container from her. Good night, Aunt Valerie. Outside, the gravel crunched beneath our feet. The cold made everything quiet. When we reached Lila's little blue car, she turned and leaned against the driver's door. Neither of us moved to leave. This is weird, she said. Yes, good weird. Very good weird. Her fingers hooked lightly in the front of my coat. Text me when you get home? I always do. I know, but tonight I'm going to read it differently. Heat moved through me at her honesty. I bent and kissed her once, gentle and lingering. When I drew back, she kept her eyes closed for half a second like she was saving it. Then she opened them and smiled. Tomorrow, history boy. Tomorrow, pantry girl, she gasped. Absolutely not, I grinned. Too late. She pointed at me as she opened her car door. One date and I'm renegotiating nicknames. One date and I'm bringing pie. She paused. What kind? Bourbon pecan. Her expression turned fond and helpless. Fine, she said. You can call me pantry girl until dessert. I watched her drive away with my hands still warm from hers. For the first time in years, I wasn't wondering what it would be like to love Lila Bennett. I was wondering what she'd wear on our first date. I changed shirts 4 times before our leftovers date. This was ridiculous for several reasons. One, Lila had seen me with the flu, with marker on my face after falling asleep grading papers, and once wearing swim trunks over sweatpants because I'd lost a bet. 2, we were eating turkey out of containers. 3, she was Lila. But that was exactly the problem. She was Lila. She was the woman who knew my freezer contained 3 emergency pizzas and no ice. The woman who had once sat cross-legged on my kitchen floor at midnight helping me assemble a bookcase while insulting the instructions in 3 languages, one of which she did not speak. How was I supposed to become date-worthy for someone who already knew all the unedited footage? I was standing in my bedroom holding a navy sweater and questioning my entire personality when my phone buzzed. Lila. Are you also acting insane, or is that just me? I smiled so hard it embarrassed me. Me. Define insane. Lila. I just put on earrings, took them off because they were too first date, then put them back on because it is a first date, then took them off again because I got mad at the earrings. Me. I'm wearing my 3rd shirt. Lila. Amateur. I'm on lipstick number 5. Me. You own 5 lipsticks? Lila. I contain multitudes, history boy. Me. Wear the earrings. A pause. Lila. Wear the navy sweater. I looked down at the sweater in my hand. Me. How did you know? Lila. You wear it when you want people to think you're relaxed but competent. Me. Disturbing. Lila. Accurate. Me. See you at 6? Lila. 6. And Julian? Me. Yeah? Lila. I'm nervous in a happy way. There were 100 things I could have said. A joke. A deflection. Something safe. Instead, I typed the truth. Me too. At 6 exactly, I knocked on Lila's apartment door with bourbon pecan pie in one hand and Aunt Valerie's turkey in the other. Her apartment was above a closed florist shop downtown, with slanted ceilings, creaky wood floors, and windows full of plants she claimed were thriving emotionally despite the evidence. The door opened. She wore a green sweater dress, black tights, ankle boots, and gold earrings shaped like tiny leaves. My brain, a professional educator responsible for guiding young minds, provided exactly one thought. Oh. Lila's smile tilted. You're staring. Yes. At least you're honest now. You look beautiful. The teasing expression softened. Thank you. You wore the earrings. You wore the sweater. We're very obedient. That probably won't last. I stepped inside and she took the pie from me. For a second, our fingers brushed. Such a small thing. We had touched casually for years, but now even that carried a charge, like our bodies had been waiting for permission to admit they'd been paying attention. Her table was set for 2 with actual plates, cloth napkins, candles, and a ridiculous centerpiece made of grocery store mums. You did all this for leftovers? I asked. She lifted one shoulder. I panicked romantically. It suits you. Her cheeks colored. We reheated turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, and green beans while moving around each other in her tiny kitchen. Normally we had a rhythm. Tonight we kept almost colliding, apologizing too much, laughing too quickly. At one point, she reached for plates as I reached for glasses, and we ended up chest to chest in front of the cabinet. Hi, she said. Hi. You're in my way. I think you're in mine. I live here. Strong argument. Neither of us moved. Her gaze lowered to my mouth, and just like that, the kitchen got too small. I set the glasses down behind me without looking. Can I? Yes. I kissed her before the question finished. She smiled against my mouth, which made me smile too, and then the kiss turned soft and slow. Her hand slid under the edge of my open coat, palms warm against my ribs. I cupped her face, thumb brushing the line of her cheek. It should have felt strange. It didn't. It felt like a sentence we'd started years ago and finally remembered how to finish. The microwave beeped. Once. Twice. 5 times. Lila pulled back only enough to whisper, "The potatoes are getting aggressive." "I'm willing to risk it." She laughed, kissed me once more, then nudged me away. "Dinner first, poor decisions later." I support this schedule. We ate by candlelight, and it was both exactly like every meal we'd shared and nothing like any of them. She told me about a customer at the bakery who had asked if gluten-free croissants could still be emotionally flaky. I told her about one of my students declaring the Boston Tea Party a group project that got out of hand. Lila laughed with her whole body, head tipped back, and I let myself watch her without pretending I wasn't. After pie, she tucked one leg beneath her on the couch holding a mug of tea. I sat beside her, close, but not crowding. "So," she said. "So. We should probably have the terrifying talk." I nodded. "What are we telling people?" "No, that's the easy talk. My family has already told 3 counties." "Fair." She wrapped both hands around her mug. "I mean us, rules, expectations, fears, the whole adult emotional paperwork packet." I leaned back. "Okay. You first. Coward." "Absolutely." I looked at the candle flickering on her coffee table. "I'm afraid I'll disappoint you differently now." Her brows pulled together. "What does that mean?" "As your friend, I knew my role. Show up, listen, bring soup, make fun of terrible men after terrible dates." There were so many terrible men. Truly historic numbers. I took a breath. But as more than that, I don't know. I'm afraid you'll see me trying and realize I'm not what you imagined. Lila set her mug down. "I didn't fall for an imagined version of you," she said. "I fell for the man who alphabetized my spice rack when he was anxious. In my defense, it was chaos. I fell for the man who sends me articles about medieval bread at 11 at night because he thinks I'll find them useful. You did find them useful. I fell for the man who gets quiet when he's hurt and thinks nobody notices." Her voice gentled. "I don't need polished, Julian. I need present." I couldn't answer immediately. She moved closer, knee touching mine. "My fear is different." I turned toward her. "I'm afraid you'll decide the chase was better than the reality," she said. "That once this is normal, once I'm grumpy and overworked, and there's flour in my hair and I cancel plans because the bakery oven died, you'll miss wanting me more than having me." The idea was so wrong I almost rejected it too quickly. But she deserved more than reflex. I reached for her hand. "Lila, I have had years of wanting you. It was miserable." She blinked, then laughed once, watery. "I don't want longing anymore," I said. "I want Tuesday grocery runs. I want you stealing my fries. I want to learn what you're like when you're somebody's girlfriend and still exactly yourself." Her fingers tightened around mine. "And if the bakery oven dies," I added, "I will bring coffee and hold tools incorrectly while you fix it." "That is weirdly hot." "I contain multitudes." She grinned, then grew serious again. "So, we try?" "We try." "Exclusively?" My heart kicked. "Yes." "Good." She lifted her chin. "Because if you kiss someone else after kissing me in my kitchen, I'll become impossible." "You already are." "You like it." "I love it." The words slipped out easily, too easily, and the room stilled. Lila's eyes widened. I froze. "I didn't mean to." "Well, I did mean it, obviously. But I know we're only on date 1 officially, and I don't want to make you feel—" She kissed me. That was her entire response. She climbed into my lap like we had done this before, like her body trusted mine even while our hearts were still catching up. I held her carefully at first, then tighter when she made a pleased little sound and threaded her fingers into my hair. When she drew back, her forehead rested against mine. "I love you too," she whispered. Obviously. The laugh that came out of me was unsteady. She smiled. "But I reserve the right to be dramatic about saying it again later." "Granted. And we are not telling Aunt Valerie tonight." "Absolutely not." My phone buzzed on the coffee table. We both glanced at it. A message preview from an unknown number lit the screen. "This is Aunt Valerie. Did you kiss her yet?" Lila stared. I stared. Then a second message arrived. "Use protection. Emotionally and otherwise." Lila buried her face in my shoulder and shook with laughter. I picked up the phone and typed back with one hand while holding the woman I loved with the other. "Me. Boundaries, Valerie." The reply came instantly. "Aunt Valerie. Proud of you, sweetheart." Lila lifted her head. "Did she just call you sweetheart?" "Yes." "She's adopting you." "I feared as much." Lila took my phone, tossed it onto the far chair, and cupped my face. "No more relatives," she said. "No more relatives. No more fear for at least 10 minutes. Ambitious." She kissed me, slow and smiling. For once I stopped thinking about what could go wrong. For once, I let myself be chosen. By morning, the panic came back. Not regret, never regret. But panic, yes. It arrived while I was brushing my teeth and noticed Lila's gold leaf earring on my bathroom counter. She had not spent the night. We were trying to be reasonable adults, which meant I'd walked her downstairs, kissed her in the cold beside her car for an unreasonable amount of time, then watched her drive away while feeling both noble and stupid. The earring must have fallen into my coat pocket and escaped later. I picked it up carefully. It was tiny, delicate, completely ordinary, and somehow it made the whole thing real. Lila Bennett had sat in my lap and told me she loved me. Lila loved me. My best friend loved me. I stared at the earring until my phone rang. Her face filled the screen. I answered too quickly. "Hi." She smiled. Her hair was piled on top of her head, and there was flour on her cheek. "You look like you're holding evidence." "I have your earring." "Oh, good. I thought Aunt Valerie had stolen it for a scrapbook." "She might still try." "Don't joke. She texted me this morning asking if we had a song." "We've been dating for 12 hours. 13, Lila said. "Don't cheapen us." I laughed, and some of the tightness in my chest loosened. Then, her expression softened. "You okay?" There it was again. She knew me too well. "I'm happy," I said. "And scared." "Same." She leaned closer to the camera, but I made a decision. "Should I be worried?" "Probably. I think we should tell people slowly, our people. Not because I'm unsure, but because I want something that belongs to us before it becomes family folklore." That was so exactly what I needed that I had to sit on the edge of the bed. "Yes," I said, "please." "And," she added, "we keep Friday nights, just us. No group dinners, no cousins, no aunt-led emotional hostage situations. Date night. Date night." I held up the earring. "Does returning lost jewelry count as date 2? "No, date 2 requires effort." "I'll bring soup." "I'm not sick." "Preventative soup." She smiled like she was trying not to look too pleased. "Fine, but wear the navy sweater again." So that was how we began, not with fireworks, with Friday nights. We learned each other in new ways and old ones. I learned Lila hated being called babe, but accepted love if I said it when no one else could hear. She learned I had to be fed before serious conversations, or I became a haunted filing cabinet. We kissed in her kitchen, in my hallway, outside the bakery before dawn while she smelled like sugar and coffee. Sometimes it was easy, sometimes it was not. 3 weeks in, I got quiet after a hard day at school and forgot to tell her I needed space, not distance. She came over with dumplings, took one look at me, and said, "Do not disappear inside your own skull and expect me to send a rescue team." I don't want to mess this up, I admitted. You will, she said, setting the bag on my table. So will I. Then we apologize and keep choosing. It was the least romantic thing anyone had ever said. It was also the most. I kissed her beside the dumplings until they went lukewarm. By Christmas, her family knew officially, though Aunt Valerie insisted she had known spiritually since 2016. Lila made her promise not to tell the extended relatives before we were ready. Aunt Valerie lasted 9 days. At New Year's, Lila and I stood on her apartment roof wrapped in the same blanket, watching fireworks burst over downtown. She slid her cold hand into mine. Still scared? She asked. Yes? Still choosing me? I turned toward her. The fireworks lit her face pink, silver, gold. Every day, she smiled. Good answer, history boy. Then she kissed me at midnight with her fingers curled in my coat, and for once, I didn't think about endings. By the following spring, we had become unbearable in the quiet, domestic way I'd once envied in other people. There was a toothbrush at my apartment with a green band around it. Her plants started migrating to my windowsills. My emergency contact form at the dentist no longer felt like a joke. On Sundays, we graded papers and tested bakery recipes at the same table, both of us pretending not to reach for the other's hand every few minutes. One rainy April afternoon, Lila came to my classroom after school, carrying a box of lemon bars for my students. She stood at the front of the room, looking at the timeline posters, the crooked stack of essays, the old globe with tape on South America. This is where you are all day, she said softly. Unfortunately. No, she turned to me. I like picturing you here. I leaned against my desk. Teaching 13-year-olds that Napoleon was not, in fact, a short king. Changing lives. Mostly confiscating gum. She walked over, slipped her arms around my waist, and rested her cheek against my chest. In my classroom, under fluorescent lights, with rain tapping the windows, she held me like I was something she had decided to keep. I'm glad she locked us in, Lila whispered. I smiled into her hair. That is Stockholm Syndrome. No, it's gratitude with legal concerns. I laughed, and she tipped her face up. Move in with me, she said. I stopped laughing, her eyes widened. That sounded calmer in my head. Lila, we don't have to, or we can talk about it for 3 months with spreadsheets. I know you like spreadsheets when emotionally threatened. I do, but I want to wake up with you. I want your books and my plants to fight for shelf space. I want to know what cereal you eat when no one is watching. You already know the cinnamon squares. I want permanent access. I touched her cheek. Are you sure? No, she said honestly. I'm sure I love you. I'm sure I want to try. The rest we figure out. That was Lila, brave, terrified, reaching anyway. So I chose her out loud again. Yes, she blinked. Yes? Yes to books and plants. Yes to serial access. Yes to spreadsheets. Yes to waking up with you. Her smile broke open. She jumped into my arms so fast I barely caught her, laughing against my mouth as I kissed her between my desk and the whiteboard. Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, everything felt like beginning. 6 months after Thanksgiving, we hosted dinner in our apartment. Our apartment. The word still felt new enough to make me ridiculous. The place was too small for the Bennett family, so naturally they all came anyway. Coats covered the bed. Kids chased each other around stacks of books. Someone put a casserole on my lesson plans. Aunt Valerie arrived wearing a pin that said Matchmaker and carrying a bottle of wine like a trophy. Lila met her at the door. If you lock anyone in anything tonight, I'm changing our address. Aunt Valerie kissed her cheek. I've retired undefeated. Good. Then Valerie looked at me. You're welcome. I handed her a bowl of mashed potatoes. Set the table. She laughed and obeyed, which felt like a miracle. Later, when the apartment was loud and warm and full of too many people, Lila found me in the kitchen. She had gravy on her sleeve, flour in her hair, and one of those gold leaf earrings glinting against her neck. The sight of her hit me with such force that I had to stop pretending to rinse a spoon. What? She asked. I shook my head. Just looking at you. Her expression softened in that way that still undid me. Still? Always. She stepped close, took the spoon from my hand and set it in the sink. You know, she said, there is a pantry in this apartment. It barely fits a broom. I didn't say it was a good pantry. I laughed, but she was already pulling me by the hand through the kitchen and into the tiny storage closet where we kept paper towels, cereal, and one suspiciously emotional fern. She shut the door behind us. No lock this time, just us. In the dimness, she slid her arms around my neck. Happy half anniversary of being kidnapped, she whispered. I rested my forehead against hers. Best crime that ever happened to me. She kissed me then, slow and smiling, while our family thundered through the apartment outside, and the fern brushed my shoulder like a witness. This time, no one had to trap us. We had chosen the small space, the closeness, each other. And when Lila laughed against my mouth, bright and warm and mine, I thought about that Thanksgiving pantry and all the years I'd spent afraid to reach for what was right in front of me. The porch light had been on the whole time. I had just needed someone bossy enough to shove me through the door. What would you have done if your best friend's aunt locked you both in a pantry and refused to let you out until you admitted your feelings? Have you ever been pushed into an honest conversation you were avoiding? Tell your story in the comments. And for those who'd like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships where you'll get shorter exclusive stories every week with no ads. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.